One, how is Donald Trump aging in reverse? Yeah. You know him better than many. Yeah. Two, you heard him on stage last night, not too far from here, in this state, and the host on Fox News, on the top of her list for VP, she goes, Vivek. And the crowd goes wild. And in this crowd, we hear nothing but VP being chanted in this brewery. For those on the live stream, they're not chanting Nikki, I assure you. You know it's a question you're going to get, and I know you get it 3 times a day. What has that conversation been like? Has there been any conversation? But more importantly, you personally, on like a physical level, on a spiritual level, on a family level, would you even be wanting that type of responsibility? Would you be prepared for that? What's your gut say?
Yeah, so I'm not going to go into this out of respect to President Trump and his ability to lead, going to go into any conversations or anything like that. But I will say this is, there's many ways to drive change in this country, but the person who leads the executive branch deserves to actually make those decisions for himself. So I think what matters much less is my gut. I think the gut of the person who's actually setting his vision for his next administration, that's what matters most. Because if some way, whoever's in that spot, but it wasn't quite the right fit, but you did it because you thought it was going to be more electorally successful or whatever, no, that's not going to work. So I think that part of the mistake is we've, with the exception of Trump, mostly had presidents who didn't actually run the executive branch. They themselves were puppets. I think what's unique about Donald Trump is he is going to be a president who actually runs the branch of government that he's elected to run. And that means these decisions should be made exclusively by him. And I think the VP is not the only important decision that he's going to have to make when it comes to staffing this next administration. Every cabinet position, it's not just the cabinet positions. It's even positions, certainly ones that I'm not going to be the person to take, but are really important. Who runs the Office of Personnel Management? Who runs personnel selection at the White House? Who runs the Office of Management and Budget, the budgeting process, at a moment where we're $34 trillion in the hole? And so I think, if you're in the news media or if in the context of, obviously, the VP selection is the next big selection, there's a temptation to latch on to that. I think that's an important position. I think that there are many important positions. And so my commitment is I'm going to do whatever I can maximally do to have a positive impact on this country and respect the decision that Donald Trump makes and how he wants to run that administration. And whatever form that takes, I'm ready for it. That's my honest answer for it.
I think I speak for everyone in this room that regardless of whatever position that you have, we all want you to fire at least 50% of the federal government.
We're shooting for 75. Yeah,
he's shooting for He says we're shooting for 75. Yeah. Come on. So we see these problems on our border. We see the problems with our budgets. We see the problems with our elites wanting to fund every border in the world except for our own, wanting to rob from our children, our grandchildren. I see some some parents actually holding any parents in the audience tonight? Mothers, fathers, grandparents? God bless all of you. Do you have the same fear that I do having kids? They're like, we might not have a country, right? If we keep messing around with the future of this nation, then we are going to be the first generation in American history. What a curse to leave this place worse for our children. What an awful thing to hang around our necks. And so we see the root of the problem being the federal government and the elites who run it. What a behemoth, what a giant to carve up. Yeah. Talk us through, it's a great talking point, right? Yeah. Oh, that'd be great to fire him. How does it actually happen, right?
So I'll talk about the technical piece, but there's a philosophical piece that's actually even more important. The technical piece is actually pretty simple. All right, so the thing that stopped most presidents, even President Trump in the first term, was a lot of the bureaucrats who said, you can't fire employees because they have these things called civil service protections that stop them from being fired. And it's true, there are civil service protections. It says, I can't fire you because I disagree with you on gun control if you work at the FTC. Okay, fine. That's agree or not, even if I'm the president, that's what the rules say. I can't do that. There's about 4 million employees in the federal government, except for about 3,000 of them who are in policymaking positions. The other 3.7 million can't be fired that way. However, read the law. That does not apply to mass firings. It only applies to individual firing, because think of the logic, right? The logic is I shouldn't be able to discriminate against you for your views. But if I'm just saying, eyes closed, there's too many people in this room, and we need to cut about 75% of them. hell or high water, we're getting that done, not bringing a chisel, but a chainsaw. A, that's what needs to be done. And B, that's what the law already permits you to do. And so I think it's with that depth of understanding of the Constitution, combine that with a chief executive who's been hardened by that experience. And Donald Trump, I can tell you, has been in a good way hardened by that experience. Combine that, and that second term is going to make even an excellent first term look modest in comparison to what I think is about to be delivered. Now, the philosophical part underlying this is important to understand, right? Because we fall into this trap. I've fallen into this trap of thinking, the deep state is run by people who wish to oppress us because they hate us and they're antithetical to us. I'm going to ask you to see it a little differently. If you're going to get to the truth of the matter, they believe they're doing what they're doing not out of malice, but out of benevolence, actually. Right? So the people in the so-called deep state, the deep state means the people who we did not elect to run the government, who are actually exercising political power, the millions of unelected bureaucrats in DC. They believe that we, the people, can't be trusted to act in our own interests, or else we would have a planet that's burning itself on fire, or else we'll have racial injustices and other intolerable inequities. And so we, the people, can't actually be trusted, so we can tell ourselves the myth that we, the people, create a government that's accountable to us. And the people need that myth. They need that noble lie. That's what the people need to be told. Feed them their manna from heaven. But it's a false manna, because what really is happening is that we're doing what's best for them. Once you see it that way, you realize that's actually far more dangerous, but far more consistent with human history. So we fought the American Revolution in 1776 to actually defeat that attitude. So for most of human history, Old World Europe, Old World England, King George, on before, they believed the idea that we, the people, could create a government accountable to us was crazy talk. Right? The agreement that we, the people, would cast a ballot at the ballot box every November, that's a wild idea, that you get to speak your mind as long as I get to in return. The belief for most of human history was you can't run a country this way. And so the thing to understand, not in an angry way, sometimes when we're angry, you lose your clarity. So this is not for or against, not anything, just seeing what's going on. What we're actually seeing is a reversion to the norm of human history. See, what happened in 1776, that was the exception. So we have to embrace that we're the weird ones, actually. That's what makes America great. Right? That's what makes America itself, is that we stand up to the current of the entirety of human history, that for better or worse, we people still say hell no to some monarch, even if you want to get it right for us. Even if you start with the best of intentions, you can take your best of intentions and go back to the old world, because in the new world, in the United States of America, on this side of 1776, this is how we do it, through self-governance over aristocracy. And so what we're seeing in that deep state today is actually that ugly old world King George mentality rearing its head again. And that's why we live in a 1776 moment right now. Right? It only took a few people at our founding. I mean, it was, a room full of people, fewer than the number of people in this room, who wrote the plan, the operating manual, it's called the U.S. Constitution, at the Constitutional Convention in '89, that set into motion a country that 250 years later is still the greatest country known to all of mankind. And so it doesn't take that many of us, but it takes a few of us at least willing to step up and actually get it right. That's the moment we live in right now.